Hi, I'm Bob Powell, host of the Exceptional Advisor podcast series, and I'm proud to welcome you to Season 4 of our series. Thank you for joining us. Whether you're new to our series or have been here since Episode 1, thank you for tuning in. The Investment and Wealth Institute is the member association of exceptional advisors, and we hope this series will continue to help you to better serve your clients, differentiate yourself from the competition, and enhance your ability to communicate those differences. Welcome to the Exceptional Advisor podcast. Thank you for joining us. I'm excited to welcome Garry Bridgeman as our guest. He is currently serving as co-chair of the Investments and Wealth Institute's Thrive Coalition, which is seeking to advance diversity and inclusion in the financial services industry. He was elected president of the Institute's board of directors in 2008 and was awarded the title Director Emeritus in 2014 for his distinguished service. Garry recently retired from a successful 40-year career as an institutional consultant and private wealth advisor. So welcome to the podcast, Garry.
Hi, Bob. Thank you. It's great to be here.
It's great to have you here. So before we dive into Thrive, for the benefit of our listeners who may not be familiar with you and your work, do you mind giving us a brief overview?
Yes, I'm happy to talk about Thrive, but I guess before we begin, Bob, I've had a 40-year career in the investment industry. Worked for Merrill Lynch for much of that time, 34 years, and Morgan Stanley for 6, where I was an institutional consultant and a private wealth advisor. In 2007, 2008, I had the privilege of being the board chair for IMCA, which was, of course, now Investments and Wealth Institute. And what a tremendous organization we have. IMCA, as it was formerly, has been around since the early 1980s, and it's created just a host of quality financial advisors through the programs that the Institute offers. You're familiar with the CIMA program, the CPWA, and now the retirement designation that the organization has. There's 14,000 members of the Institute now throughout the US, Canada, and Australia. So it's a great institution. We've done a wonderful job of helping advisors to really understand how to advise clients and to give advisors a lot of information regarding portfolio management. And as the CPWA designation does, it helps clients to, advisors rather, to actually advise clients that have significant wealth. So I'm really proud of what the organization has done. Most recently, with all that's going on in our environment these days, the Institute started moving towards the Thrive Coalition, and that's what you and I are here to talk about today is the Thrive Coalition. And I think it's been very well thought about. Thrive Coalition is designed to level the playing surface to the extent possible within the financial services industry. If you go back and look at statistics of the diverse population, you'll see numbers for African Americans, women, Latinos, gays, et cetera, have not been exactly where we would want to have seen those numbers. In fact, if you look at their percentages overall in the general population and then look at the percentage in terms of participation in the financial services industry, you find that we haven't done well enough of a job in terms of moving those persons into this field. So Thrive Coalition is working towards doing that. And one of the real interesting things is that it created a scholarship at the beginning of the year, scholarship program to enable those persons that, for whatever reason, needed that type of assistance to be able to engage the Institute. And the numbers have improved in terms of the new applicants for the program. They're up 3 times over. So I'm really proud of what the board of directors is doing within that organization, their commitment to doing the right things. And I would also say that it's always been the right things that this organization has done. If you go back to its beginning, it had a woman who was the executive director. In fact, we had 2 women There were executive directors. The first two executive directors were women prior to Sean coming on board. The board has had leadership from women. We've had two board presidents that have been women, and I understand the president-elect is a board member, is a woman. The first call that we had for the Thrive Coalition and the ambassadors that have come together in order to work in this effort, there were a lot of board members who participated. And I really couldn't be happier to see that as an organization, it is fully committed to helping to level the playing surface within the financial services industry.
Yeah, I mean, we'll talk about the objectives and goals in a second, but one of the stats that's in the PowerPoint deck that lays out Thrive just talks about how in the U.S. population, women represent 52% of the U.S. population, but only 32% of the advisors, and 13% are Black African American, but only 6% are advisors and Hispanic Latinos. That's 16% of the U.S. population, but only 7% of advisors. It strikes me that the opportunity to have the profession mirror the general population is immense, given those numbers.
Yes, and then when you delve into the numbers even deeper, you would find that of all of the advisors, women only represent 13.8%, and Black African Americans only 2%. So the total population is only 2%, of Hispanics, Latino, or 2.5% as well. So there is some work that really needs to be done in that space. And I actually chaired Merrill Lynch's diversity effort years ago, probably 10 years ago, and the numbers were pretty much the same then. So for the last decade, we haven't moved the dial very much. I think women have shown some improvement, but for African Americans and Latinos, the numbers have not changed, in my view, well enough.
So you talked about the scholarships as one element of Thrive. There are two other elements. One is the knowledge centers, where there'll be a knowledge center specific to a platform that will provide content, podcasts, community to advance the causes of Thrive. Can you talk a little bit about that?
That's the Institute working at its core. What it does best is to provide educational content. And so in the Knowledge Center, you have this educational content that's now being pushed out to this Thrive community, those persons that we're trying to reach. So you can do that in a number of ways through webinars and conference calls, et cetera, and information that's going to be posted within that Knowledge Center that I think diverse people will find a benefit.
My sense is that creating community, especially in this day and age of COVID, when we can't attend a conference perhaps and see each other face to face, will be especially important, because this will be the only avenue through which, at least for the time being, that we can share best practices or ask questions or get or find a sounding board for whatever you might need out there.
Yeah, I guess, well, you would have to say the Institute has been doing it for some time. COVID has been with us now for 6-7 months, and the Institute has had to host programs during the year of 2020. So I think we, with the tools that are available to us, are doing perhaps the best that can be done in terms of creating that networking opportunities, as well as pushing out the educational content.
Right. And then another element, Garry, is the, I guess it's described as a coalition. Can you talk a little bit about that?
Well, it's a coalition in terms of it's a acknowledgement that the Institute is not the only player in the space, and that financial services firms in general have put together pretty good efforts inside of their own organizations. And then other industry associations also have a commitment towards this effort. So as opposed to approaching the question by itself, the coalition is seeking to partner with other organizations like MMI, like the CFP Institute, in order to have that represented inside of what we're trying to get done. So as opposed to just working by ourselves, we're convening broader conversations on the topic.
Yeah, it strikes me, the CFP board, for instance, just concluded their diversity and inclusion conference, their third such conference in I believe it was earlier this month last month in November. And it strikes me that maybe in years past, 10 years ago, like you said, that we didn't move the needle, but now there seems to be this force, not only associations, but companies that are devoting and dedicating themselves to this effort, including even having official positions inside companies where there might be a diversity and inclusion officer that focuses on this.
I think you would find most firms will have someone in that position and who's working hard to make a difference in terms of their numbers. And they've had commitments for years. I wouldn't say that the financial services industry has been sitting idly by allowing this to happen. They've been committed towards making a change. And now I think we've got just more players in the space to make that more of a reality.
Yeah, well, it from where I sit, the time couldn't be more right for this, and I'm especially hopeful that the results will be there, which I guess brings us to some of the goals and objectives that Thrive has set for itself. Do you want to sort of walk us through some of those goals?
Yes, well, one is to grow the number of scholarships, because that's already working. You can kind of see that the applicants for the CIMA, CPWA programs, et cetera, have gone up as a result of being able to offer scholarships. And as I mentioned in our intro, they're up three times as many. So I think the word needs to get out greater, and more money has got to be made available. The board, thank God, has been willing to make a commitment towards this effort. There's been corporate contributions and some individual donors. So there's probably an opportunity to increase the amount of individual donors and of corporate donors to this effort. And again, the core aspect of the Institute is education. So you can really understand success in our business has a lot to do with your competency. So with inside of the Institute, we're able to drive very strong educational content to diverse persons, along with allowing them to get their CIMA designation, et cetera. So it's to add value and relevance through getting more participants within the program. And by 2021, we're looking at having 1,000 participants within the Thrive Coalition. And then the standards. One thing I've always admired about IMCA, now the Institute, is its ability to help foster the right way to practice business. So you'll have a lot of that in there, along with fairness, objectivity, impartiality of certification processes. So the ambassadors themselves will be responsible for advising the staff on its diversity efforts and the board, and along with that, being able to monitor the scholarship effort to make sure it's getting to the right places. We have tried to keep our goals and objectives somewhat narrow for now, because you can't be all things. But I think there's tremendous opportunities to broaden this, what I mentioned to you right now as we go along.
Yeah. So if you don't mind, do you mind just sort of just sharing with us like what your personal role will be in this, and what others who might want to get involved, how they might get involved?
Oh, that's a good question. Others right now are somewhat limited to the current makeup. We have not created an apparatus for bringing others into the effort now. Just something on the side. As we were announcing Thrive, I was contacted by a gentleman who has his own scholarship fund, and he wants to work with African-American educational institutions where he's providing 100 scholarships a year for those persons who would come into the wealth management industry. And he asked us to provide mentors. So we're not really geared at the moment to do that, but that's something in the future that we could, that we're looking at, matching up mentors within the Institute's membership with students who are aspiring to be wealth managers. So things of that nature. Again, we're not there yet, right, but these kind of conversations are being had, and it may allow us the opportunity to tap inside of our membership and bring more people into the effort. I kind of believe that the broader the tent, the more you can get done. So, and a lot of people have come to me saying, how can we get involved? So we really got to work hard to make sure we found a place for persons that want to be of service.
Yeah, it seems like the opportunities are immense. As you were talking, I'm thinking the creation of not only mentorship programs, but a job board, perhaps, where folks are being actively recruited who have the certification. And that's probably just one example of, I'm sure, of many that will be, placed on your desk over the next.
Yeah, we may need to put you on the coalition council yourself. But the job board has been discussed as one of those things. But again, in the beginning, you want to keep it narrow, make sure you get your program up and running in the right way, and then expand smartly as you move forward. But I do believe there's ways that we should be working to include others.
Yeah. So the program itself officially launches in 2021. Is that right?
That's correct.
Okay. And I think, from our perspective, obviously much of the groundwork has been laid. You've been working on this for a while now. The other initiatives have been in place for a while, the Women in Wealth programs, et cetera. All the various components have been there. So this is sort of the coming together of a lot of work.
Yes, Women in Wealth has been a very successful program. This convened over 1,000 women to the networking and conference calls, et cetera, that it's been doing. So it's been extremely successful so far.
So I'm really excited to see this roll out. Are there some things that we haven't touched upon that you think you'd like to mention?
Yeah, I think for me, just as an aside and a personal kind of view, that we have to do more to work towards success for minorities in the industry. For years, it's been a revolving door. The retention rate is not exactly where it should be relative to the industry, which doesn't have a very high retention rate within itself. So when you start looking at the diverse population, that's a problem. And when that's a problem, you can think about senior management and their responsibilities, their objectives to get things done. Maybe diversity is not really the top item because it's harder to make work. So I think we've got to do more to ensure the success of participants in our industry. Minority members have a lot of a high quality, capable minority member has a lot of opportunities that they can do. And if we want to attract those persons inside of our industry, we can't have this continuing revolving door. We cannot have a failure level as high as it is. So we got to work harder on that. And I think the Thrive Coalition is a good component and a good beginning. But along with the education that we're providing persons, we've got to be in a position to create market opportunities for them. Because it's marketing opportunities that I think are really the significant problem, getting people to do business with diverse people. We've got to, at some point, solve for that and help people to understand that it's okay to select a diverse financial advisor. So I think for me, that's an element that we all got to spend more time on because we talk a lot about education, but you've got a lot of highly educated wealth managers that failed because there were no market opportunities. So we've got to be busy doing that.
Yeah. So it seems like there's I had a chance to talk to Kate Healy. I'm not sure if you've crossed paths with Kate. She was at TD Ameritrade. She's been involved in D&I efforts, both at TD and as well as at the CFP board and elsewhere. And she talked about not only the demand side, but also the supply side and the need to go into high schools and colleges and let the diverse populations know that there's a career opportunity there for them, and as opposed to maybe other avenues. And any thoughts about that in terms of having people identify this as a career opportunity?
Yeah, I think that's going to be underway. And as I mentioned to you, one gentleman is providing scholarships to 100 African Americans. At least that bucket is being worked upon, and I'm going to work with him in order to grow that number, hopefully to 1,000 scholarships a year. So in terms of the content, the people and the educational component that they need, I think we're going to solve for that. I think that can work. But again, I point out that that's not enough. You've got to create a marketplace where persons, diverse wealth managers can thrive.
Mm. Well, it's been a pleasure chatting with you, Garry, about this. But I don't want to end our conversation without giving you the full opportunity to say whatever else is on your mind about this, even to if it means reiterating something that you've already mentioned, as well as.
Well, I think we've covered a lot. I think the industry has had, if you go back to the early 70s, has been trying to solve this. I remember Merrill Lynch signed a consent decree to hire more African Americans. I think it was 1973, 1974. And this is 2020, and we're still having this kind of conversation about trying to get it solved. So I would just say that there's been a lot of starts and stops. When I was asked to co-chair this, by the way, with Kevin Sanchez, a gentleman I have a lot of respect for, I should mention my co-chair, I made sure that we're talking about something that had sustainability, not something that we're going to start and stop, but something that we're committed to, that we're going to work on and make sure that we drive this process to a place where we actually make a difference. And I think that's what we're trying to do here, and I'm just so happy to be a part of it.
Yeah, I get the sense that I've been around the block, I think, in some ways as long as you in different ways, but I feel like this time is different, that this time is not going to stop, that there's a start and it's not going to stop.
Well, from your mouth to, how does it go? From your mouth to God's ears, or however that goes. So much hope you're right on that. But having seen it so many times before, I'm a little guarded on that point, and would say that we've got to make sure it doesn't stop. And we just can't sit back and expect it not to stop, because it will. We are easily distracted. And in the financial services industry, it's about profitability, right? It's about revenues, it's about profitability. And you go through cycles where the focus becomes more profitability and revenues than on diverse issues, right? And they can take the rear seat. So I would just say this is a good time. Things are lined up really well, but we've got to work hard to make sure that it doesn't just stop here and that we get some things done. I've seen a lot of suffering in this industry in behalf of diverse people over years, just watching people fail, and they're in the 45, 48, and there's no opportunity for them after that. What are they going to do when you are at that age and you've worked so hard to made a big commitment towards one industry? Now, what do you do? So lives have been ruined. So I think we gotta make it work. I'm a retiree who's still willing to roll up his sleeves and help in this effort, because I think it's important. And I've seen from the inside what it looks like, and I think we definitely have got to work to get it done. Is that inspiring enough for you, Bob? Because
it is. I'll say that the odds of this succeeding are all that much greatly improved by you being at the helm of this effort.
Oh, you're very kind.
All right, Garry. With that, I'm going to thank you once again for sharing your knowledge and wisdom about this greatly important topic.
Thank you for allowing us to talk about the Thrive Coalition and with you today. So thank you very much.
Thank you for listening to the Exceptional Advisor podcast, brought to you by the Investments and Wealth Institute. This episode is brought to you by the Investments and Wealth Institute's Thrive Center for Diversity and Inclusion. The Thrive Center's purpose is to foster a profession where financial advisors from all backgrounds thrive, thereby promoting a more diverse and sustainable workforce within the profession. Learn more about the Thrive Center's mission, upcoming events, and how you can get involved by visiting www.investmentsandwealth.org/thrive.